be the great Luke Bryan. Okay, I got to tell a little bit here. So we welcome Senator Josh Harkins, by the way, to the Element Wealth Studio.
Good morning, Gerard.
A regular attendee, you and I are, at Mr. Earl Dean's Rankin County Political Breakfast. It occurs every first Saturday of every month.
It is
for a long time.
An institution. I was not present this past Saturday. I was moving my daughter into college.
Right. I think we had 204 in attendance, which you would expect when we got primaries coming up. You and I have been doing that a long time. So,
well, I am sure Joni and Buddy McLean appreciate the
very
the
much so.
patronage.
Yes, we should also note that it is held at McLean's out on Hollybush Road.
It is a great establishment out there. If you've never been out there, I suggest you go out there and take a peek. They've got a lot to offer out there.
They do. It's awesome. It's a great place. So. I was, by the way, invited to kind of break up the political speeches. Yeah. Mr. Rhodes asked me to give a little lottery update, which I did. I was happy to do that. Another successful year for the state lottery. By the way, just to remind our audience, the lottery, since it was created and sold its first ticket November 25th, 2019. First ticket sold to Representative Alice G. Clark.
Yes.
Represents Hinds County, parts of Jackson. She was a longtime advocate of the lottery. It finally got through in special session. You remember it well, 2018. The governor, Phil Bryant, at the time, called you guys into session, got that thing through there. She bought the first ticket, did Miss Clark. So I gave an update. We've produced $1.675 billion of gross revenue in the 3 years and 7 months of operations. That has generated $450 million of net proceeds to the taxpayers, to the state of Mississippi. And of that, $310 million has gone to the State Highway Fund, the remainder to the Education Enhancement Fund, as you well know. But where I was going with this is we played Luke Bryan there going into the break. You know how Mr. Rhodes always has a little drawing. Some folks will get
you get a pecan pie. You get
right. In this case, it
onions.
was Mayor Butch Lee of Brandon. Of course, you guys got the great venue out there, the amphitheater.
They've done a great job.
Unbelievable. Luke Bryan is performing August 13th at the amphitheater, and I won tickets. 4 tickets.
All right.
Of course, after I just gave my speech about, members of the lottery board are not able to play, nor are immediate family members in their households, nor are our employees and our vendors. And then all of a sudden I get drawn and win tickets, having gone
but you don't work for the amphitheater, so you're good. You can take those tickets.
But it's always a great deal. And we missed you, of course, Saturday, but I know you're a regular attendee.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic social event, and it's people who care about the state, their community, and our nation.
Absolutely. Earl Dean's been doing this for a long time. It used to be at the Golden Corral, and it's moved out to McLean Lodge, and it's a bigger venue. It holds more people, and it's a fun event. If you've never been and you're close by, I recommend first Saturday of the month, stop in. Yeah,
it is a lot of fun, and it's just it's much fun just seeing people that maybe, in my case, I come from Madison County, I hadn't seen in a month in Rankin County sometimes, and it's just fun to get to know all these people, to interact with them. It's a great event, and it's democracy in action. I said that at the meeting. When you got a gathering like this, we pray. We say the Pledge of Allegiance. We have political candidates speak during election time. We have elected officials such as yourself speak. That's what our country's all about.
Yeah, and I think it gives a chance for people to. I mean, a lot of the questions get asked there while you're mingling around.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not necessarily standing up and taking Q&A. It's sitting in the parking lot, walking in the lobby. It's around the table eating breakfast. It's where a lot of questions get asked. It's a lot of opportunity to connect with voters, and that's why I love going to that breakfast. It's democracy in action.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you and I've had some discussions.
Oh
right?
Yeah,
working
we many a breakfast,
and I
there.
appreciate that. Enjoy that. All right, so it's election day.
It is.
You and I both got our I voted stickers on.
I ran and voted in my new polling location this morning. So the last time I voted, I was moved from my usual location, and I think they had combined 3 or 4 precincts into one place, and there was an hour wait at 9:45 in the morning, which there's typically never a long wait. But it just, fortunately, the election commissioners were able to get a precinct opened up and help to diffuse some of the traffic and let people get in and out and vote a little faster. So.
Yeah. And by the way, our mutual friend, Representative Price Wallace, sent a photo of himself.
I saw that, yeah.
Where he says he's voted.
Yep.
So we appreciate that.
It's like he's going to a Grateful Dead concert, that shirt on.
He does. Got the tie-dye shirt on, doesn't he?
He does.
Oh, gosh. Let's see. Sam from Mount Herman wanted to pass this on. You really can't tell if the turnout is light because of the time of day. Why people voted absentee, working on like me, just now getting up like most days. I think the absentee votes came in at about 40,000. We got Michael Watson coming on at 12:05. So I'm not really sure how much of an indicator that is as to the turnout we expect.
I mean, I think you look at, like, Rankin County came in higher than 2019, so that's a higher number of absentee ballots. My daughter voted absentee. She's in college, for her first time to get to vote. So you've got a lot of people that, if the percentage of absentee votes is an indication of turnout, which, may be, I think you've got a lot of places that came in higher than normal, so which would indicate hopefully by the end of the day today at 7 o'clock you'll have a higher turnout.
That's right. So then we'll all be, many of us at least, will be gathering up at the various watch parties to see the results. We got arguably the most contentious race on the Republican ballot would be that for lieutenant governor. Mm-hmm. You have served as a state senator under the present and incumbent candidate, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Of course, your colleague in the Senate, Senator Chris McDaniel. You guys have served in the chamber for many years. Mm-hmm. Is the challenger? It seems like he's got his band of supporters, which is extensive, pretty energized. What do you think?
Well, Chris has always had that. I think that he represents a brand of thought, and to me, I've supported Lieutenant Governor Hosemann, and I think if you look at the body work, I look at a lot of different factors. You always take the Reagan test. Are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? And I think the answer is overwhelmingly yes. I wish the race would have focused more on issues and plans. I didn't see a whole lot of that.
Right.
I think that if you're going to spend the whole time bashing your opponent, you're not letting people know what you're going to do different specifically. I mean, it's one thing to sit there, and I'll take the tax cut comment or the issue.
Okay.
We cut taxes in this state by $500 million. We're still implementing the $300 million tax cut from 2016. We've implemented a $500 million tax cut in 4 years.
And the 16 was the elimination of the 3%, and then the franchise
tax,
which was the worst tax ever invented.
And we've eliminated that tax. We've also done other tax measures, cutting measures for businesses that you try to. I mean, in my mind, it's not just one focus. It's a whole host of issues. Business taxes. We've cut sales tax on SaaS, we talked about that last time on software service.
Right.
We've looked at different ways to help businesses out so they can be successful, where they can grow. Expensing, that's deducting revenue.
That was a big deal.
I mean, it's a huge deal. So, I mean, they're all different forms of tax cuts that we've implemented. It's not just one focused singularly at income tax. It's business. It's income. It's collectively the whole tax policy. And unless you're going to sit here and point specifically to who you're going to cut, if you're going to plan on cutting 35% of our revenue out, you owe it to the voters to explain who you're going to cut. That's more than our education budget. What school districts are you going to consolidate? How are you going to save money? I mean, where is your plan to eliminate that revenue and still function and do the things? We've starved government in some areas, and it's come back to kind of cripple us. Look at corrections. Look at mental health. Look at child protective services. So just to say, I'm going to eliminate, it's easy to eliminate the income tax. It's easy to eliminate the grocery tax. That is absolutely not true. We spent 2 years just working on the income tax, having thoughtful, intentional meetings, going over specific plans. How you implement it absolutely matters. And I wish there would be more discussion around specific plans, specific ideas on how to address the issues. Because once you get elected, you have to govern.
We're coming right back. We got Senator Josh Harkins in the Element Wealth studio. It's Election Day. Get out there and vote. Stay. Well, that's a good one there. The great Billy Joel. You know, that's our content director, Alex Payton. That's her favorite musical artist. She went to see him in concert last year.
Did. Okay.
Yeah, pretty good. So we are back. There's some reports, Rhino. You see this? Flyers that show valid voter ID. You seen that? Somebody sent us something on that. And so I'm told so the flyer, I think, is a leftover from the Secretary of State when that was implemented. And the flyer showing the sample evidently includes a photo ID of Delbert Hoseman when he was, because you could tell it's from a ways
it's
ago.
old.
Right,
it's
pretty
old.
old. So I just out of curiosity, I sent this to Secretary of State Michael Watson, and he I don't think he'll have a problem with me reading what he wrote back. He's coming on the program here. 1205 says, during our 82 county tour, we noticed many clerks still had older flyers up with voting info. We've sent all 82 updated information, but some simply haven't changed them. Nothing nefarious here. We called Rankin County and asked them to take those flyers down.
Yeah.
So, pretty much it. But I just feel like, guys, that if Lieutenant Governor Hoseman prevails, I hope we're not going to hear cries of voter irregularities, and I've already seen mention of Democrat crossover and that sort of stuff. And just keep in mind, Senator, that in our state, when you register to vote, you do not have to affiliate with a party. There is no way to do that. We have no process for that. Some states you do, and then you're limited to only voting in that party's primary. In our state, you can vote in whichever primary you choose. They ask you, which ballot do you want when you go to vote? Everybody's experienced that.
I've got friends that I've talked to over the last several days that told me that they're going to vote in a different, they normally vote Republican, that they're voting Democrat because of a local issue.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
I mean,
we had somebody on the text line yesterday.
The local issue outweighs the bigger statewide electives. And so, I guess to each his own. But that's the law. You get to pick when you walk into the voting booth.
The only restriction is with respect to a runoff.
After a runoff.
Right. You
Correct.
have to vote in the same party's runoff that you voted in the primary. But if you did not vote in the primary, you can vote in any runoff you want, just to clarify the rules here. So 7-7, we don't have paper ballots across the state. We still have some using electronic voting machines, but many have implemented marked sense scanning. That's what we have in my county. You get a paper ballot, you fill out the ovals, and then you scan it. That is recorded by the optical scanner. It tells you you're all good to go, and that's where we are. All right, so there. You were talking about before we went to break something that we've certainly discussed countless times on the program, which is it's easy to say at the high level, let's eliminate the income tax. Let's eliminate sales tax on groceries. But as they say, the devil's in the details, and we've really never had a bill presented, even the House bill, that was designed to eventually eliminate the income tax. The very first one, you remember, that had an increase in sales tax that was still over an extended period of time.
Correct. And if triggers were met,
assuming triggers were met,
and there's no definite point of I think what we've done is we said, hey, we're going to lower it to 4% over the next 4 years. We're going to watch the economy. We're going to watch the revenues. We're going to see what's going on in our state. And we can obviously demonstrate we can walk and chew gum. We've cut taxes twice in the same period of time that we're phasing in another tax cut. We can cut taxes again. And it's a definitive move. It's more consistent, and you have a end goal, and you can kind of measure things. And it gives you an opportunity to digest it and to see how the state is reacting and see what the economy looks like. I mean, look, 4 years ago, if I'd have said, hey, we're going to have 7% interest rates and, by the next term, you'd be like, are you kidding?
Right.
I mean, you never would have thought we'd be in the position we're in now. How does that impact the economy? How is that impacting job growth? How is that impacting businesses that are hiring people and paying the wages that they have to pay? I mean, are they going to be able to afford to keep everybody at a higher wage because of wage inflation? I mean, what does that look like? And so I think for me, measured steps and taking steps where we've made a big step going from 5 to 4. It's the 5th lowest in the country. Is that the end game? No. As with a whole host of issues, I mean, there's still work to be done. And like I said, when you win, you have to govern. And, right now, I wish that more emphasis was placed on specific plans, more ideas, let people know, hey, this is what he thinks. He's not just saying X, Y, or Z, or he or she is advocating on this behalf. Here's how they're going to achieve it. And you miss a lot of that.
My concern, Senator, and I've said this so many times on the program, but I think it bears repeating, is that those candidates who support full elimination of the income tax are stating that in their campaign materials, and that's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. But I think the average voter perceives that and interprets that as meaning, hey, as we just get these people in there, I'm not going to have any income tax effective 2024.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
That's absolutely not going to happen.
Yeah, and no state has phased out their income tax that didn't already have that did not have an income tax.
That's correct.
They're working on it, but every state that's working on it they're taking bites at the apple. They're lowering it to a certain percentage. They're lowering it to 3. They're lowering it to 2.5. And if it was so easy, do you think that more states would have already done it?
I totally agree. And I'll just point this out. And again, I'm just being objective here and passing on information. One of Senator McDaniel's staunch supporters, a surrogate, posted yesterday in social media, as Lieutenant Governor, Chris will repeal the income tax, repeal the grocery tax.
Does he even know how much it is?
I'm not sure, but
That's
like
my
you,
point.
I've asked I've asked all candidates, okay, well, what is your specific plan to achieve that?
Yeah.
The specifics do matter. You, of all people, know that because you're responsible for raising the money and making sure we got enough money to operate the government there, chairing the finance committee.
And look, you say that. One, if they don't know how much it's going to cost you, then be suspect of that person. But two, when you say eliminate the grocery tax, that is a major revenue source for cities across the state.
Right. Well,
the comment's been made, well, we'll find the revenue from other sources to pay the diversion. So it's not just the dollar of tax you're doing away with, it's the extra 20-something% you're going to come up with to pay all the diversions that come out of that tax.
At the state, to make the cities whole.
To make the cities whole.
Yeah, so it's double whammy.
Yeah, an income tax cut is dollar for dollar.
Right.
You cut a dollar income tax, that's a measured dollar for dollar approach. When you say we're going to eliminate the grocery tax and make all the diversions whole, that's not only the dollar you're losing, it's the extra 20-something% that you got to go to fill all the diversions with.
Right.
So it costs more than just what the face value of it is.
Well,
and so how you do that, how you implement something like that matters. I mean, Kansas gets thrown out a lot for people that understand it. Kansas did it. They did it too much, too fast. They had to wind up coming back and raising taxes in order to cover their budget because they created a hole. And there was a lot of other infighting, a lot of other circumstances that go along with that whole situation. But what they did was they did too much too soon, and it wrecked their budget.
The Democrats very regularly and effectively point to that as reckless Republican tax-cutting policy. And so you've got to be methodical and thoughtful. I'm all for it, as you know. You and I have talked about this countless times. But I'm also for what's prudent and what doesn't break the state and cause all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we do have to be aware of, you and I have discussed this, we got some economic headwinds on the horizon. This morning, not sure if you guys caught it, Moody's downgraded several U.S. banks. Mm-hmm. And downgraded their credit. As a result, the market is experiencing a fairly significant sell-off. The other bit of economic news is that China is actually experiencing deflation. Now, why is that important? Because it's the world's second largest economy, and their economy is floundering at best. It has not fully recovered, and they're concerned about it. Is the Communist Party of China that runs the place? This is going to have an effect on the U.S., and so we might be looking at some tough times. We've also got an inverted yield curve in the bond markets. and it's the greatest gap, the biggest inversion we've had since '78. And the inverted yield curve is undefeated. Every time we have the inverted yield curve, a recession ensues.
Yes.
These are things we got to worry about at the macro level.
Those are things you have to worry about. And you know what? If you pass some bill that, quote, in title only eliminates the income tax and you're left to triggers and you have all these other factors going on, you may not ever get into an elimination.
Said it last week.
But you said it, so everybody's happy.
Yeah. You hang around. We got some more talking to do.
Absolutely.
We got Senator Josh Harkins here in the Element Wealth Studio. Stay with Wealth Studio. We're visiting with Senator Josh Harkins. He, of course, chairs the Senate Finance Committee. That means he's responsible for making sure we got enough money to run the government here in the state of Mississippi. He, of course, hails from Rankin County, nearby Rankin County. All right, so we've got the lieutenant governor's race, as we discussed. I've seen a lot of senators come out and really not so favorable to Senator Chris McDaniel. Is there an issue there? Is it something you're comfortable talking about as far as his colleagues in the Senate? The only, I guess, one I've seen, or I guess a couple that have come out in support of the senator, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Senator Sojourner, Senator Chisholm, maybe Senator Tate sometimes. I haven't seen anything, I guess, public there, but it's I guess a concern one may have is if he prevails and he's elected, would he have consensus and coalition in the Senate?
You know, a lot of politics is driven on personality, and I think that people across the state can talk to their representatives and their senators and get a good feel about people at the state level. I think that the working relationships the members in the Senate have with each other is formed over time. It's not something that's a one-off. I think people have concerns. I think they're legitimate. I think it's participation, how much somebody's active in the going-ons of the Senate, the activity. There's a lot of work that gets done. There's a lot of work to do. And I think if you look around, I think the common thread is that the concern about how active and how participatory the process members are. And right. I think that's where you see a lot of the rub. I mean, this is not anything new. I think this has been talked about extensively. That's the concern I think I have. I mean, most people. I mean, look, I show up and we work. There are weeks that, especially at the end of the session, I mean, we're up there till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. The last 2 to 3 weeks of the session is when everything really comes together. I mean, the budget gets talked about and worked on all session long until you have that final meeting and you set a budget number, and then that budget number may be different than what you've been planning on. And then you have to go back and just work the entire budget through all the process, all the bills that are coming through with, in conference where they're tweaking little things, and there's a lot of work, and you can tell who's up there working, who's participating and who's pulling their weight and trying to help bring legislation around, and so I think that's what the big rub is. Yeah. To be honest with you, I think it's just how much effort he puts in is a concern. Clarify for the audience, the lieutenant governor does actually not vote on legislation. He breaks a tie. Breaks a tie, right? Similar to the way the vice president works in the Senate. In the Senate. At the federal level. Correct. Breaks a tie. So how much power does the lieutenant governor have with respect to just dispensing of bills they don't like? Well, he assigns the bills to committees. But can they just not assign a bill? No, you have to assign a bill. They can't just say, you can't throw it away. No, you've got a certain period of time you're supposed to assign bills. But you think about it, when the filing deadline happens, you may have 1,200, 1,400 bills in the Senate and 2,000 bills in the House. So it's a process of having to go through and read the bills, find out what the subject matter is, which committee. Several people look at it, and then you have to assign the bill to a committee. It goes to that chairman. That chairman looks at it. If it's double referred, it has to come out of that committee and then go to the other committee for the deadline. So, but the chairman has the prerogative I don't have to bring the bill up if I don't want to.
In the committee.
In the committee.
So that's where bills can just get.
A lot of bills do not make it out of the first deadline.
Yeah. And the committee chairman, that's the power of the committee chairman.
Correct.
Okay. So when there are grousing coming from folks about the lieutenant governor appointing Democrats as committee chair, that I think is what they're saying, is these committee chair may just.
I think that's about the most hollow argument I've ever heard, because Governor Phil Bryant had 19, never heard anything from anybody about it. Governor Reeves had 17 his first term, 13 his second term, never heard anybody complain about it.
Well, just for argument's sake, in the case of Governor Bryant and Governor Reeves, Lieutenant Governor, of course, at the time you're referring to, did they have an option? Could they have appointed all Republicans? Were there enough Republicans to chair all the committees? Because that's one of the big deals.
You got more committees than you have Republicans.
Is it practical to chair multiple committees in your view? Because that would be the option. We have 36 Republicans, 45 committees.
Not if you. I mean, there are committees that take up a lot of your time.
Plus, you're members of other committees.
Plus, I'm on 7 or 8, 9 committees. There's only so many time of the day, and sometimes committees meet at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So it's just not a practical application. But every committee, I mean, to that argument, every committee has a majority Republican membership on it.
So the only real power would be if they just don't bring the
if they don't bring a bill up.
Committee.
But I've yet to hear a bill that somebody's had a concern about that's come out of the committee that
appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Gerard. Good to see you, man. Go vote.